The Defensive Rookie of the Year award is one of the most sought-after honors in all of football. Over the last 20 years, this award has gone to a defensive lineman or a linebacker 18 times. It's only gone to a cornerback just twice during this time period. In 2015, Marcus Peters won the award with Kansas City, while in 2017, Marshon Lattimore won it with the Saints. Outside of these two players though, the last defensive back to win was Charles Woodson during the 1998 season. So it goes without saying that for a cornerback to win this prestigious award, they have to not only be incredible, but they have to be a household name too. During this season, there are two cornerbacks that have a good shot at winning. Those players are Sauce Gardner from the New York Jets, as well as Tariq Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. Now, while I think Sauce is a household name given that he was a top 5 pick, not many people really know about Woolen. He's a defender that after getting selected in the 5th round is having an excellent season. He is somebody that definitely deserves our attention, and I think he's going to be a foundational piece for the Seahawks defense. Is this the season where we'll finally recognize a defensive back? Before we begin, if you can do me a huge favor and like and subscribe to my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. So anyways, to show how great of a year Woolen is having so far, check out the number of yards he's allowed per coverage snap. In under 150 snaps, he's allowed 0.9 yards on those plays. The average is 1.2 for cornerbacks. What's crazy is that 0.9 is up there with the elite cornerbacks like James Bradbury and Marlon Humphrey. It's even better than guys like Denzel Ward, AJ Terrell, or Trayvon Diggs. As a side note, Sauce Gardner is also crushing in this metric. He's only allowed 0.6 yards per coverage snap. Now, while Gardner is ahead in this metric, the one thing that Tariq has on Sauce is he's dominating in his playmaking ability. While Sauce has only one pick against a Dolphins team led by Skylar Thompson, Tariq has picked off 4 quarterbacks in a row. He collected his 4th just this past weekend against Kyler Murray. Let's check out that play. This came on a 4th and 11 with 4 minutes remaining in the game. The Seahawks have 2 safeties deep while linebacker Jordan Brooks is lining up at the 6 at the 45-yard line. Meanwhile, on the offensive side, the Cardinals are an empty set shotgun look. They have 3 receivers on the open side while they have 2 receivers on the boundary. To cover this, the Seahawks ran quarters coverage. This means they have a 4-deep 3-under zone defense. Working our way outside to inside, the cornerbacks lining up near the sideline will play man-to-man on the number 1 receivers. Next, the apex defenders, which are Ryan Neal and Kobe Bryant, are playing wall technique, which means they'll take an inside leverage on their respective receivers. Behind them stands the deep interior safeties, who will play the slot receivers over the top. Finally, last but not least, is Jordan Brooks, who's playing as the middle hook while covering the number 3 receiver. That player is tight end Zach Ertz, who runs a middle sit aiming to pick up the first down. Now let's focus our attention on Woolen. His coverage on this play is incredible. How he uses speed and footwork to mirror Marquise Brown is what makes him such a threat on the outside. What's interesting is that Woolen is 6'4" and Marquise Brown is 5'9". There is a 7-inch gap between these two players, so you'd kind of expect Woolen to use his physicality as a weapon on this play. I figured he'd use his length and strength to ride Brown outside towards the sideline. However, Woolen doesn't do this, but he's still incredibly quick after running a 4.26 at the NFL Combine. As soon as the pair is 10 yards past the line of scrimmage, Woolen turns his body while mirroring Brown down the sideline. Kyler's pass is a bit underthrown, so Woolen uses his crazy vertical in order to bring it in for the interception. What's impressive to me is how fluidly Woolen covers his play. His use of his speed and his hips to flip in place is truly incredible. It's how he picked off Andy Dalton just in the previous week. Now back to the breakdown, let's look at that interception against Andy Dalton. This play happened in week 5 against the Saints. It was 2nd and 14 in the middle of the 3rd quarter. On this one, the Seahawks are playing cover 3. The Saints are running a 4-verts concept with options for their wide receivers across the field. Given Woolen's positioning over the top of Traquan Smith, Dalton thought he had an opportunity for the comeback up the sideline. His timing on the throw is actually fine. He threw the ball before Smith even broke back towards the sideline. His placement, however, is less than ideal. The ball should have been thrown outside and near the sideline. What's crazy is Woolen's change of direction on this play. How he flipped his hips from facing down the field to facing back towards the line of scrimmage is extremely impressive. He was able to stop on a dime while dropping his hips, and he used his natural talent to drive on the ball to pick it off. Now, when a cornerback has 4 interceptions, those are definitely the easiest plays to talk about. However, what's truly impressive is how few total yards that Woolen has allowed. For example, last year, Trayvon Diggs led the entire NFL in interceptions with 11. This is an amazing stat, however, he also allowed the most yards in the NFL too. He allowed over 1,000 yards according to Pro Football Focus. Now, I'm not bringing this up to take a shot at Diggs. The reason why I bring this up though is because Diggs' playstyle is extremely feast or famine. He's the type of player who's willing to get burned in order to make the big play. This is not the case for Woolen though. He does such a good job of staying in the confines of his scheme, and then he uses his natural abilities to make plays. If Woolen was gambling left and right, I can promise you that I wouldn't have nearly as high of an opinion as I currently do. Check out these plays against the Cardinals. There's nothing flashy about any of these snaps. They're just good old-fashioned technique where he stays in the structure of his scheme, works his reads correctly, and then he shuts down a potential throwing window by the quarterback. His feet are so quiet at the line of scrimmage. He's so patient. He does a great job of watching and waiting for the receiver to make a move before jumping on the direction of the opponent's release. Even when Woolen initially bites, he has the speed and agility to recover extremely quickly. Plus, it obviously helps to have his length. He's 6'4", has a very long wingspan, and he uses that to impact a receiver before they get 5 yards down the field. Now, outside of these things, the thing that truly impressed me wasn't even his skills in press man coverage. It was honestly his plant and drive when he lined up in off-zone coverage. He uses that same patience to wait for the receiver to commit on his route before he plants and drives to take away that throwing lane. If I was an opposing quarterback and I saw this on a consistent basis, there's no way I'm throwing these routes as Woolen is already there to break it up. I would see this, and then I would move on to target somebody else instead. Now, from an improvement standpoint, the main thing I did notice was that Tariq was much better in pure man coverage than he was in zone. His instincts and his understanding of how defenses are attacking zone coverage around him is just okay. The good news is that since he's pretty much always lining up as an outside cornerback, he plays the man portion of his zone coverage concept more often than not. What I mean by this is that when he's playing quarters or in coverage like cover 3, he usually ends up covering somebody all by himself in what looks like man-to-man. This is usually due to the side of the field he lines up in the first place. I talked about this in my video on DK Metcalf and Jeff Okudah, but the Seahawks play sides coverage with their cornerbacks. This means that Tariq will line up on the offense's left or the defense's right side of the field for something like 99% of his snaps. Now, speaking of scheme, I wanted to spend a moment talking about the Seahawks defense and some of the general things that I saw on film. The first and the biggest thing I saw is the variety of coverage the Seahawks have started running. Under their new defensive coordinator Clint Hurt, they have been very different in this regard. Instead of sticking to cover 3, cover 1, and then mixing in some cover 2 like they did last year, they've run a lot more cover 6 this season. I haven't noticed them using cover 2 nearly as often as they did last year. This is one of the biggest changes I've seen. In this coverage, Tariq Woolen will play in an underneath zone near the sideline, or he'll play quarters where he has to bracket a deep threat. Both of these fit his skill set pretty well. Now, going back to the topic I brought up at the beginning of the video, these two cornerbacks in Tariq Woolen and Sauce Gardner seem like they're the 1A, 1B rookies that are likely to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. In my opinion, there are fair and reasonable arguments for both. For example, Tariq Woolen has a lower passer rating allowed, and he also has the 4 interceptions compared to Sauce, who only has the 1. While interceptions and passer rating are obviously important metrics, Sauce does boast a lower yards allowed per coverage snap like we talked about before. He's allowed just 0.6 yards per coverage snap as compared to Tariq, who's right around 0.9. Also, Sauce has more forced completions at 7, while Tariq only has 1. Looking at these two players, it's clear that this will be a very close race no matter what you value. To me, it's a debate on playmaking ability as opposed to pure yards allowed. And for that reason, I think Tariq Woolen is my current favorite. I don't, however, think that either cornerback is so far ahead of one or the other, and I think it'll be very interesting who ends up winning it by the end. Regardless of who does win, Tariq Woolen is having an amazing season for being just a 5th round pick. He's already showcasing a killer shutdown ability, and he's been one of the lone bright spots in Seattle's terrible defense. I'm really excited for his future, and he has the skill set to be very good for a very long time. Well, that's all I have for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to support the channel directly, feel free to follow the link to my Patreon account below. Also, you can find me on Twitter at SamuelRGold.